Good morning, Justin. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Absolutely fantastic, and I'm so proud of you for doing this podcast. And the reason why is because I grew up in the age of inside sleeves, and I would study those bands and read every magazine possible to find out what my favorite band was up to. And dang it, dude, it took you years to get to this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We got to get back to celebrating the stories behind the music. I feel like,
Don't you think that's exactly what's missing from music today? Is that we don't have the story. What we have is the assumption.
Yeah, and because there's no, it's like because we don't. It's hard to know how people take music in these days beyond just listening, right? You can stream music, but back in the day, you used to see the band on MTV. You used to read the liner notes. You used to spend a whole summer bored with 5 albums, and you'd read the cover like 12 different times in a day. And you knew these artists and their lives, or you felt you did. And you knew what they wanted you to know, and now you don't know what anyone knows. It's
True,
weird.
so true. I broke the sit-up record at Riverside Junior High School in Billings, Montana, and so to train for that, what I did was I put on a New Kid in Town by the Eagles, and all it did was the needle would pick up, start all over. Needle would pick up, and to this day I still hear that cue burn on that 45.
It's so great.
Don't you think that's also missing from the industry? I mean, I kept listening to your episodes and stuff like that, going, they're going to put a cue burn somewhere on this thing because I just want to hear that.
We should add that. I've long thought about that. We should add that. I think to the beginning of our episodes. Actually, you raise a good point. That might be something that you might be hearing that going forward.
Sharing the story of music. Now, I've been with Steven Van Zandt. This man preserves the history of music. I mean, you are walking the same path that man is.
Yeah. Wow. Well, yes. I mean, thank you. Steve Van Zant's incredible. I mean, have you ever met? Heard a more passionate musician in your life? I mean, this guy is, not only a top-notch, incredible musician who's responsible for some of the music of all of our lives, but I mean, the guy loves music and he loves musicians, all musicians. From the biggest to the smallest. This is a passionate guy.
That's the one thing that I have learned in doing these projects for iHeartRadio and having the conversations with the artists and stuff like that is you realize how human they all are and that they really, all they want to do is collaborate. They just want to jam and something comes out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of people start that way, right? That's where the love of music really comes, or playing music comes from, is getting together with your friends and just getting a jam together, and it's funny. Like, I don't think that really ever goes away, even as you get older. In April, for instance, we're doing a 4 episodes celebrating the release of the new Red Hot Chili Peppers album. You know, they talk about how before they did the new album, they got together and they jammed on old songs again, almost like it was the old days. And I don't think that love ever goes away.
Oh my God, dude! This is one of those moments where it's like I could sit down with a millennial or a Gen Xer and go, hey, I was there when the Chili Peppers just were given birth, and it makes me look like an old timer, but at least I'm talking about a band that they can jam with.
Yeah, absolutely. They're incredible.
Oh my God, Anthony Kiedis. I mean, do you remember when Anthony was like? I mean, it was on the tongue of everybody. Everybody talked about Anthony Kiedis. Anthony Kiedis. The girls loved him because of his looks, and the guys loved him because of his attitude.
I think that's still true.
So what's up with Todd Rundgren? Why is it that here's a man that has put a huge dent in the music formation, and yet the world is not praising his name? They know, but they don't know.
Well, I think Todd is a pure musician. I think Todd's a pure artist, and I think, when you look at the fact he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year and he didn't turn up, he's that. I think he's just that kind of a guy, like he really cares about his art, his music, and his fans. I don't think he's too concerned with the adulation.
Yeah, that had to have charged up your imagination when Dolly Parton last week said, no thanks, I'm not interested in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Oh man, she so deserves it though. I mean, also I think Dolly Parton, Merle Haggard, Willie Nelson. I mean, Waylon Jennings, who's more rock and roll than them, man? Come on.
So true. I got into radio in 1979. Casey Kasem was one of the hottest things on the radio. That was the way that we scored our stories about a lot of these bands and stuff like that. Is there a seed like that inside of you that was inspired by a storyteller?
Yeah, well, Casey Kasem, of course, would be one of those people. Love him. I think I loved biographies growing up. If I'd get into the Ramones, and I would just have to buy like every Ramones book. I mean, I think at the time when I was into them, there was maybe two, right? But I'd just read those cover to cover, and then go to the library and get there'd be a documentary on the Sex Pistols, and just sort of devour that. But as I'm thinking about storytellers who really made me fall in love with music, I don't it's hard to get away from the storytellers in music, like the Bob Dylans, the Bruce Springsteens, the Cat Stevens. Like that's the music that I really became when I really became a true music fan. I think when I discovered artists like that who are really these true real deal storytellers.
What listeners don't know is that those of us who have a passion for music, that somewhere in boxes, probably in the attic and underneath the house and stuff like that, we have hundreds of books that nowadays all we do is go to Google, but we've got these books. What are you going to do with all of your biography books?
Well, I wonder that, like I think about that. Like I have a whole storage container in my backyard, and it's I gotta say it's probably 85% books. And yeah, I don't know, man. I have carried these things around with me for decades now. At least 2 decades now, and I probably will hang on to them. I reference them. I gotta say, I go back to that storage shed sometimes. I pull them out. I rifle through them. I'm like, hey, didn't I read somewhere that you know Paul Simonon from the Clash, collaborated with Elvis Costello and Houston, and then I'll just go to the book and I'll find it. That's just kind of I'm that kind of a music nerd.
Yeah, nowadays I'll get the book and I want the ones that are wrapped in plastic. Like I have the latest one from the Rolling Stones sitting here to my right, not even opened. I just don't even want to open it. I just want to have it, and that's like the history. I never opened the book. It's still sitting there unopened.
I gotta say, I have the new Quincy Jones box set, which has a wonderful book inside of it as well. And I did unwrap it, but I have yet to have the heart to really dig into it because I don't want to ruin it. It's just too beautiful.
Right. So let's talk about John Bastille. First of all, I think this man is amazing. I think that he's still undiscovered. We see him, but we don't really know his true strength. But what a soul this man has, and I think he is set to change a lot of music history.
Yeah, absolutely. Really incredible. I think mixing jazz and all kinds of genres. Soul. John Batiste is one of the great artists, and he's on with Colbert. And I love that. It's like we got jazz on late night. That's incredible to me.
Yeah. It's just that first of all, he's not afraid of his music, and that's, I think that's part of the passion of new musicians, getting the opportunity to explore their own personal art, is that he just has this something about him that says when you find the music, you find the peace.
Yeah, and you can feel that in him, can't you?
Yes.
Comes through.
Yeah, and it's not just his Southernism. I mean, sure, here in the South, and there is something here in the South, and we can talk about the soil of the South all day because there's something about the South that creates music.
It's heavy. I love going to the South, man. I mean, there's something about the South inspires all kinds of wonderful things. When I'm there and I go for a drive, I love my favorite thing. One of my favorite things in life is going to the South, getting in the car, flipping through the radio dial, all the different kinds of all the different life and all the different flavors going on, and just looking at the scenery, man. Yep. It's a gorgeous place. It's a beautiful place, and there's a spirit out there that if you can connect with it, man, it's deep.
Well, obviously they connected with it in Gainesville, Florida, because what the hell is going on with that town where they keep creating monsters?
Oh my gosh! I think about all the time the fact that, Tom Petty was taking guitar lessons from Steven Stills. You know, you're like insane.
Now, somebody who keeps visiting the South is Robert Plant. Robert Plant, to me, I first of all, I was such a Kiss freak when I was a kid that I didn't really explore Led Zeppelin, but I will explore Robert Plant today. Why is that we see a different side to this man?
I think I think really Led Zeppelin was probably so big. This is just my guess. Is Led Zeppelin was so big that it was hard to think about any of them individually. And of course Bonham tragically passed away, and Zeppelin sort of felt like it wouldn't be right to go on without our brother, and so. But what I think we saw is their sort of individual personalities come back. And so what I think we're seeing now has probably always been the same Robert Plant, but we're just sort of seeing this different version of it. I mean, he does return to the South a lot, but he's always seemed to be a traveler. Like I think
Yeah.
about Immigrant Song being inspired by a trip to Iceland in I think 1969 or 1970. And so this is a guy who's always been a searcher. This is a guy who's always been a wanderer, it seems to me. And I think, in a solo career where we've been able to see that more without that big, Led Zeppelin sort of thing sort of obscuring that.
Yeah, because I love how humble he is. He'll sit there, even with Stern and stuff like that, and he'll say, it was Jimmy's band. Yeah, I was just part of Jimmy's band. And yet he was the front man, and every poster I did have on my wall of Zeppelin, it was always like, that's the guy, because he's got that long rock and roll hair. That's what I want. I want long rock and roll hair.
Yeah, but it really that he's such a I mean, I don't know, those guys, man. It's the four of them. It's the four of
Yes.
them,
Yep.
you know?
Yep. Yep. Yeah. So true. So true. So when you put this podcast together, Broken Record, I can't imagine what the pressure is like for you to make sure that the continuity is spot on, because there's jerks out there like me that are going to sit there and say, Justin, no, 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 no.
Look, you sometimes get into it, people on YouTube, on the YouTube comments. Absolutely, we have it out. Someone, speaking of Robert Plant, someone, because you can listen to our podcast anywhere. That we also are on YouTube, and on the Robert Plant episode, I said that exactly what I just said. It's about the four of them, and could you imagine Led Zeppelin with any other singer than Robert
No,
Plant?
no.
Can't imagine it. But someone had to go and say, well, Paul Rogers would have been a better singer. And I love Paul Rogers, Who doesn't love Free? Who doesn't, he's done a great job filling in for Freddie Mercury and Queen. But I'm sorry, guy on YouTube. Led Zeppelin would have been Led Zeppelin if Paul Rogers was a singer, as great as he is.
Oh, although I do like the current shape of the group Queen, and I love the fact that they are very honest in their concert where they step out there and they say, look, I am not trying to be Freddie Mercury. I am me. This band back here is Queen, but I just happen to be a part of this night. And I love the fact that they do that, because, I mean, have you experienced the new shape of Queen?
Yeah. I think it is Adam Lambert's the newest singer. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw them I saw them with Paul Rogers, but I never saw them with Adam Lambert. But I seen some video, and I can say that kid can sing.
Yeah.
That kid can really sing.
And of course, I have to get into the drama of everything, and that's what I love about Broken Record, is you guys get into the drama as well of how things transform and how they grow, and we get a real story from your podcast, rather than, well, this is just another rumor or another clickbait on Google. I mean, you guys really dig in and give us the junk.
Yeah, we don't get into the clickbait, but we really get into the real stories of how these things came up, man. Like the song, how these songs aren't coming out of thin air. These songs are coming out of life. The life of the musicians that are living, and that's the stuff we're really getting into and really talking about. Where did these songs come from? Where did the inspiration strike?
Do you think that's because in every song there's an oh crap moment where you go, oh crap, I didn't know that?
Yeah, I definitely think so.
Yeah. See, and that's the flavor of music, and I think that's one of the reasons why listeners have remained so loyal to radio, is because they're waiting for that talent, or they're waiting for your podcast to give them a moment that they can share forward.
Yeah, and I hope people connect with the podcast in that way. The way that they connect with the music, the way that we connected with our books and our MTV interviews when in between the music.
Yeah. So Judy Collins. My God, Send in the Clowns was to this day is still my all-time favorite song. What is it about Judy Collins that has made her more of a mystery than Led Zeppelin? Because it was all about mystique with Zeppelin, but Judy Collins, holy God, dude, she's got some mystery around her.
It's sweet Judy Blue Eyes. I think that's what it is. It's she sort of like was like she's when you think about it, she was like your favorite musician's favorite musician, you know? I think that's the mystique with her is like, all those Laurel Canyon artists, all
Yes.
those great singer-songwriters, it's like they were all listening to her, you know?
Is there a side of you that if you had a time machine, would you go to Laurel Canyon, or would you go up to maybe the Seattle area and watch the birth of grunge?
Ooh, this is a good question. What would I do? You know what? I got to go to the South, man. I've got to go see like
So true. I mean, the thing about it is, I mean, even in the Charlotte area, I mean, the music is so alive. That's like there's this new show that's on TV with Kelly Clarkson, American Songwriter Song or something like that. And what they're doing is they're honoring the different artists from each state. And it's one of those things where we sat there yesterday watching it, going, who's going to represent North Carolina or even South Carolina? And we all agreed it has to be Darius Rucker. What would you in your own state? Who would represent your state?
Well, I gotta say, I'm talking to you from Long Beach, California, and I think the co-host for Kelly on that show is the great Snoop Dogg. So
You're right.
I gotta pick Snoop Dogg out the LBC.
Do you like
Hometown hero, baby?
Do you love the idea that Neil Young still has a voice? I love when he took on Spotify. He's got a pair of balls on him that is just unbelievable.
Man, Neil don't stop, does he? Neil's the greatest artist of all time, in my humble opinion. Neil just don't quit. He's pure, unadulterated Neil Young, from the beginning of his career to the end of his career. From quitting Buffalo Springfield just before Monterey Pop Festival,
Yes.
taking on Spotify. Like, this is a guy who does not compromise, and he's continually made great art. Can't think of. There's probably other artists, but I can't think of an artist who's had a career as long as his, who every decade has at least one project worth listening to. I think with Neil, it's definitely more, but he has at least one project from every decade worth listening to.
And do you think he's got that same appeal that Cher has, where it's just that we have such a love affair going on with their emotional connection to music that it's like no matter what they do, we're going to show up?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Neil now it's 50 years, and kids have been going almost 60 years, right? And like for me, for instance, I became a Neil Young fan because my family took me to the concerts, and so I grew up seeing Neil, and now he's Uncle Neil, and it's just like, and it's the same thing with Cher, right? Like, people grew up with her on their TV, and people grew up with their moms listening to her and their grandmas listening to her, so it's like it's such a part of our life now.
Yeah. I was with Steve Hackett yesterday from Genesis, and I asked him, I said, what is it like to hold a song that's 50 plus years old? And he says, you know what, to me it's still brand new because a song is always evolving.
Wow, that's a cool question, and that's a cool answer too. I wonder.
They all have these songs that are like that have been with them half their life, and it's like, oh my God.
And they're playing them all the time. Think about the Stones, man. Yeah. Like, how many times have they probably played Jumpin' Jack Flash now? How does that feel breaking that out? Like, does it still feel? I mean, I know when I hear it in concert, it sounds as incredible as ever to me.
Yeah. Lindsey Buckingham, for some reason over the during the pandemic, I mean, first of all, I'm a Fleetwood Mac fan all the way because I remember sitting in the front yard playing the guitar because of this new album called Rumors. But for some stinking reason, over the past few years, I have really fallen in love with and appreciate Lindsey Buckingham. He's another one of those people that not everybody appreciates him.
Again, I think that's like the Robert Plant thing, where it's like the band was so big, yeah. and Rumors, the album was so big that it's hard to even connect it with actual people. It feels like an entity more than a group of people.
Yeah. What is it like for
But
you to put these podcasts?
acting like a monster coming from the hillside, not like a band, you know? It's
So
like, what?
true. So true. Well, I mean, my God, his latest project, he teamed up with Christine McVie, and dude, I'm telling you, whatever they did in that studio, I can't break away from, because I mean, the two of them together, I mean, it's like, like Stevie Nicks and Lindsay. No, it's Christine McVie on this one.
Yeah, she's some of the secret sauce of that band too, man. Great songwriter, great keyboard player, great singer, you know?
Well,
I
let's
love that part.
let's be honest. When it really comes to music, it all goes back to, I think, gospel. It goes to the soul, and you even talk about Pastor T.L. Barrett, buddy. You bring that man forward.
Oh my gosh, Pastor T.L. Barrett, that's a heck of an episode. That's a heck of a guy. I mean, yeah, it flows from him, man. It flows from his soul to his fingertips and his voice, man. Wow.
Do you ever sit there and talk to them about that, how it moves through their system, and try to get the real answer? Because I mean, it's like you were in the presence of nothingness, and all of a sudden something happened.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, everyone, including Rick Rubin, who
Oh my God.
is a co-host on the show, and one of the great producers. I think next to Quincy Jones, probably the great producer of all time. And he's been around a lot of these people doing this stuff. He's seen a lot of songs appear out of nowhere, and him and a lot of people were related to fishing.
Yeah.
The longer you wait and the longer you stay open to it and the longer you try, it's like, there's a reward out there somewhere. You just got to be patient.
Oh my God. I mean, to do this project with Rick Rubin, first of all, he's another one of those people that I always knew he was there, but I didn't know him. But through your podcast, I'm getting to see a different side of him.
Yeah, he's incredible. I mean, he's just a pure music fan. Incredible.
Jesus.
Incredible guy.
Yeah, dude, I could talk music with you all day, because I think this is true Americana when people can get together. I think the only thing that people talk more of is music than wrestling, and wrestling's a cool sport to talk about, but music is where it's all about.
I love wrestling. Let's talk wrestling.
So then we got to get together and talk about wrestling one time, because Ric Flair lives right here in Charlotte. So I mean, we got some woo. Yeah. You have a brilliant day today, okay, sir?
You too. Thank you, Arrow.